Charles Umlauf was an integral part of this community. Many of the people in this community remember him as a man, remember him as an artist. They remember his wife, his life here, his family. That's part of the cultural fabric of Austin. And also, he was a great artist, and that's an important part of what makes Austin, Austin. He was original, he was creative, and he was good-natured.
A place that you have to come to understand. It's a place that a lot of people, once they've been once, they want to come back. This is a, it's a special place for whatever reason.
Charles Umlauf fits very nicely into a larger American context. He fits into a Texan context because he was exhibiting at all of the Texas annual shows. He was in a number of major galleries and museums. He showed in New York. There's some of his works are at the Metropolitan Museum, at the Smithsonian Institution. So he's a marvelous artist because he fits within a Texan context, and then you can see Texas within the United States. He was also looking to European modernism. When he was at the Art Institute of Chicago, which is where he did a lot of his studying, he saw a lot of European modernist works, and you can see how that begins to affect his work.
It's also important that the public see Charles Umlauf's work in the context within which it was made. Near Zilker Park, which he so loved, near Barton Springs, to see his work in relief to nature is an important part of the message that the Umlauf Museum has to give.
Umlauf was born in Michigan. His family moved to Chicago when he was very young, and most of his training up until 30 was in Chicago. At the Art Institute of Chicago, he studied with a fellow named Albin Polasek and apprenticed with him. He also studied with Laredo Taft, two big names in American sculpture. Then he was invited to teach down at the University of Texas at Austin, which had a fledgling art department in 1941. The art department had opened in 1938, so he was one of the first professors, and he was hired to be a professor of life drawing and sculpture. He taught at the University of Texas at Austin for 4 decades, retiring as professor emeritus in 1981. In 1985 is when he and Angeline made the gift to the city of the sculpture and the land on which we're sitting right now.
The relationship between the Umlauf family and the museum is essential. It makes our garden a very unique space. The family has so many stories to share regarding my grandparents and their life here and what they built together. In addition, I think that our family has been generous, and we've decided, because of the great relationship with the sculpture garden and with the city of Austin, we've decided to leave quite a few personal items at the house, making this just a very special, special hilltop place. We had a really fun life up here on the hilltop. The house was always warm. My grandfather, one thing I remember, and I think most people remember, were his hands. They were so strong, and I think it was just being German for one, and all the sculpting and the carving that he did over the years of his life. And he would just squeeze us, and it was sort of like a game that we would play. He worked so much, but he was always happy when he was working. I also think that the biggest part of a legacy that an artist can leave is not just his work, not just what he did when he was here, but leaving part of his story. And I think that this is the fundamental part of the gift. I think this is their legacy, and by giving it, their life story continues.
I have the great honor of running Austin's municipally owned museums and cultural centers like the Umlauf Museum. I don't know if everyone realizes that the Umlauf collection is owned by the city of Austin, as is the property. And so we work in partnership to build a museum together. For over 20 years, we've partnered to build this museum and to offer it to the people of Austin to showcase the work of Charles Umlauf. Now we have the opportunity to partner again to share with the public how he lived and how he worked.
The curator's role of the Umlauf is to take care of the collection, which includes the 168 sculptures that Charles and Angeline Umlauf donated in 1985. All of the new pieces we've acquired since then, which number in the hundreds, including a lot of drawings, a lot of fragments, a lot of unfinished pieces. Also to take care of the home and studio. And the curator also does exhibitions. We do 2 Umlauf-related exhibitions a year and 2 contemporary art exhibitions a year to keep his work fresh and let people see the continuity of sculpture into the 21st century. The thing that excites me most about being curator here, personally, I have an art history background and I worked on mid-century, 20th century modernism. I also have worked on Texas modernism, and Umlauf fits into that. But it's an incredible, unparalleled opportunity because we have the home and studio, the home where he generated the ideas, the studio where he worked with them and created the work, saw them to fruition, and then the final product down below in the garden. We're in the studio right now, which we hope someday to open up to the public.
I think my favorite part about volunteering at the Umlauf is realizing that it's a secret place in some ways. People kind of walk in and don't know what they're getting into, and I love that moment of discovery where people see, oh, I'm outside. Oh, I can touch this. Oh, there's sculpture all over the place. And I think that moment is really cool because many museums are so sort of staid and enclosed, and the Umlauf is the complete opposite of that.
The Umlauf Sculpture Garden and Museum educates visitors about sculpture by, number 1, having Umlauf sculptures on view in the garden at all times. We always have at least 50, but we also alternate shows, as I mentioned, of contemporary art and Umlauf situated with his contemporaries back in the 20th century. One of our missions is to show how important sculpture is for people to relate to it with in 3 dimensions. All of Umlauf's work that you'll see in the garden, except for one, is sculpture in the round, something that you can walk all the way around, that you can touch, and we want people to have an overall physical response to it. The museum has a huge task, which is to take care of all of the Umlauf sculptures that it already owns. And I want people to remember, and it's one of the things we like to teach them when they come to the museum, is that all sculpture and all artwork has a life, and that it can get old, damaged, and you have to constantly care for it. So we have launched a series of bronze conservation workshops. It's something that the museum has always done. We're just trying to do more of them now. And we also want to preserve a lot of the drawings so that you can see Umlauf's complete work from the initial sketch through to more finished sketches, to plaster, to ceramic, and into bronze.